hopefully. It's not bad. Let me shift up just a little bit. Let's see. All right, so you can see the project. This is the beautiful card that we are creating today. It was created using the 4 ways to use the hybrid embossing folder, and I'm going to call out those different ways as I go along. This is a friendship card created with some beautiful designer series paper, and inside it says, "You absolutely made my day." So this card was created using the Seaside Wishes bundle, which includes the stamp set with the beautiful sand dollars and the sea stars, some pretty sand splatter, and some little pebbles to mark a path. And best of all, this bundle also includes some great sentiments. So I mentioned, "You absolutely made my day." "Your friendship is the perfect gift." Is that what is the best gift? I have my right glasses on. "Love you." And "Sometimes the simplest things mean the most." So that is the stamp set. Coordinating with it are dies. There are 8 dies in this set. And you can see there's a large die there. Let me take this out. That works in conjunction with the embossing folder. And we also have some detailed coral dies, some sea plant dies, and that's what I'm calling them. They might have another name. I'm calling them the sea plants. And large sea star, small sea star. So there are the dies that are in the bundle, and best of all, here is the embossing folder, the hybrid embossing folder. You can see there are some splotches in the background. There are 3 sand dollars in 3 different sizes, all working perfectly to create a very pretty card. Let me see if I can get this just situated a tiny bit. And how about if I drop this down? Let's see. Don't know if it's going to work. Hopefully. There we go. Bring you in a little bit closer. And I think that that's about as close as I'm going to be able to get. All right. And you're going to see a little bit of, let's put this up here so you can see there's our reference card, our embossing folder, and let's get started crafting. I'll share with you the supplies as I go along, and I've got some examples of the sand dollars I created using the pretty hybrid embossing folder. So I have 4 different ways to create with the folder. Let's see if I can get to that. There we go. All right, so let's start with way number 1 to create with the hybrid embossing folder. So I'm going to take the embossing folder, and I've got some supplies here. By the way, today I am working with the beautiful patterned paper called Thoughtful Journey. It's a 6x6 designer series paper pack, which this month happens to be on sale. It's saved, I believe it's 15% off of the pattern papers that are in the annual catalog. So rather than $12.50, you're going to be paying just a little over $10, and those are on sale through the end of the month. You can use the bonus days coupons as well. So, all right, my friends, let's get started. Here is the card we're making. You can see I've got the sand dollars in the sand, and I'm going to share with you how I created with the hybrid embossing folder. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is that sand dollars are not necessarily white or sandy. In fact, if they are alive, they are colored, a beautiful purple pinkish color. And so that's the color scheme I've chosen to create with today. Hello, Sonia. Thank you for joining, and thank you for sharing. So way number 1 to create with the hybrid embossing folder is simply to emboss. That's what we do with most folders. And so I happen to have a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 cardstock piece. This is basic beige. I'm just going to slip it inside the embossing folder. Now, this is a size that requires the standard size cut and emboss machine. You cannot use the mini here. The folders are a little bit bigger, and so I'm going to bring in my standard size cut and emboss machine. And I'm going to share with you how I sandwich it, because that's one of the important facts you need to know about how to work with this embossing folder. So I will need platform number 1. You saw me place my paper right inside the embossing folder. And then right on top, I need pad number 4. So I'm going to go ahead and crank it through. Remember, this is the first and easiest way, the simplest way to use the hybrid embossing folder. And I'm going to set that aside and share with you the beautiful job we've already done. Look at this. Already I've got a beautiful background for a card. I mean, that alone would create a beautiful card. I used basic beige. You can see the sand dollar impressions that create the folder created, and a little bit of the splatter. It could be sand, it could be water bubbles. So there's way number 1. Very simple, the standard embossing folder technique. My second technique, again, I am going to use my cut and emboss machine, and I'm going to add a little bit of color. Already I have a feeling I'm going to be losing things today. I'm going to take another piece of basic beige, and this time I am going to use my brayer. So I happen to have an early version of the Stampin' Up! Brayer. There's a new version available. It's very similar, and brayers work pretty much the same way. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my color. Remember, I said live sand dollars are more purple pinkish, and so I'm going to borrow Petunia Pop. It's a beautiful pink purple color, and I am going to open that up. I'm going to apply some ink to my embossing folder. So I'm looking at the folder with the Stampin' Up! Logo facing me. I'm going to open that up, and I am going to apply ink directly onto the folder. So here I go. And here's the tip. You are going to want to apply ink in one direction. So just go ahead and roll that brayer right onto your ink pad. And then I'm going to brush it onto, or roll it onto, my embossing folder. So warning, this could get a little inky, as stamping will. And I tend to go in different directions just to make sure I've got some coverage. Now, this way I am going to get some of that color onto my sand dollars. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to set this aside. So the way I clean that brayer, I can either run it through my chamois, or I can clean it when I'm finished crafting, in which case I would just go run it underneath the water at a sink. So next I am going to bring in my die, that one single die that has the 3 sand dollars. I'm going to place that there. And what I'm going to do is put this right inside the folder, and you just have to turn it into the right orientation here. I'm going to drop that right onto the folder. I'm going to take again a basic beige cardstock, and I'm going to close my folder, and again I'm going to run it through my cut and emboss machine. The sandwich is going to be the same. Still need my platform 1. I need my folder with the die and paper inside, and I'm going to run that through. So this time I'm going to apply color, and I'm going to cut with the hybrid embossing folder. So we'll cut and emboss, and these sand dollars are going to come out quite lovely. Let's push this aside, and I can bring this up and pop off my die, and you can see what I've created. One, I've still got that background I could use for something else, and I've got 3 sand dollars with that purple coloring right on the sand dollar along the edges and within the little sea star. So we've got some beautiful color, and I'm going to be using these on my project. So I'm going to put that right there. I'm going to move these aside. I'm going to share those with you in just a few minutes. So now I've done two different techniques with my hybrid embossing folder. I'm going to quickly just kind of wipe this clean. And again, this is something, usually I wait until I finish crafting, just take it over to the kitchen sink, run a little bit of water through it, and remove the color. So I just did that with a wipe. All right, so that was technique number 4. Oh, that was emboss and die cut. So I used the brayer. And let me back up. You don't have to have color as well. So I think I did those out of sequence. I added color. You can also do it without adding color. So not as messy. And I'm still going to apply insert the die. And you'll be able to see the difference. I'm still going to have my basic beige cardstock in there. And let me push those out of the way. So this one's going to be just a die cut sand dollar. So I kind of skipped ahead, out of sequence, which if you've ever watched me, I tend to do little goofs that way. So what I'm going to do, you're going to see the difference. Brayer and no brayer technique. So here are my sand dollars with the brayer and without. Now this would work. I could have run a piece of Petunia Pop cardstock, maybe Moody Mauve, Blackberry Bliss, any other purplish, pinkish color to create the live sand dollar. So now I have, in comparison, brayer, no brayer. So inked and no ink. And there we go. There we go. So 2 different styles, two different looks, and I still have another way to create with that hybrid embossing folder. So I'm going to take these. I'm going to be using these on my project in just a second. The next option I have, because it has a coordinating stamp set, I can also stamp. So I'm going to take that huge sand dollar stamp that's in the stamp set right here. This time I'm going to actually stamp on a piece of basic beige. Let's see, I have my scrap here. So now I'm going to stamp, cut, and emboss. So this is a photopolymer stamp set. Let me grab, you probably knew what I was going to say. Let me grab my piercing mat, a piece of basic beige, and I'm going to use again my Petunia Pop, and just going to ink up. Sorry for the noise. All right, then I'm going to stamp down, and I have a beautiful sand dollar, a lot more color than the brayer effect. Let me put that out of the way. And now I'm going to actually die cut this as well. So let me bring it back. Let me put my, there we go, my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. I'm going to bring back in the die, place it back into my folder. Whoops. Butterfingers today. And I'm going to insert that. And this part's a little bit trickier. What I'm going to do is place my stamped sand dollar right in position. And what I'm looking for is that smaller, you can kind of see that smaller area. You've got an indentation and, or it's kind of like a cutaway and a cutaway. And I'm going to look for that on my die, which looks like this is right here. So I know I'm on a camera. Let me put this in here a little bit better. So I just have to rotate until I find the right spot. I'm going to go ahead and close that embossing folder. Still the same sandwich because I'm running the 3D embossing folder and the die through. I only need the platform and I need cutting pad number 4. And I'm going to crank this through. There we go. And let me share with you what that looks like. I think these are amazing. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? So now I have another version. So here we go. I'm just going to give you the large sand dollars. So it goes this way. So no ink, brayered, stamped, cut, and emboss. And then of course was just the emboss. So we have 4 different ways: just embossing, cut and emboss, brayered, and ink. Let's go ahead and use these sand dollars on a project. I am going to use one more stamp that's in the set. I'm going to bring in my large sea star. I'm going to use Petunia Pop, and I need a small piece of basic beige. And let's see if this will work. There. So sea stars also come in lots of different colors. I know in my mind I gravitate towards the same colors, but they actually come in lots of variations. Some are even spotty. They have a pattern to them. And I think just going back to nature and thinking about all the colors that we can use switches up our stamp set possibilities, right? Okay, so this time I'm just going to die cut. So my sandwich is going to be a little bit different. I am going to use platform 1. Then I need platform 2, the cutting pad on the bottom, paper, my die, and this one again, I'm just looking for something that, one of these little arms that's a little bit more unique. So I think it goes like this, and nope, not quite. Keep rotating, there we go. And that's how I find the right alignment, just kind of trial and error rotation. And let's see, if I put my cutting pad on top, bring in my machine, and die cut. And I am going to return my die to its place so I don't lose it. Okay, now we are ready to assemble pretty much. So I've got my reference card here. And let me tell you what other supplies I'm using on this card. So my card base is Pretty Peacock, and it is the vertical orientation, I call it, although I'm using it in landscape. So it is 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 5 1/2, folded in half, just like so. And what I've done, I've taken my Thoughtful Journey paper. Oh my gosh, this one I was torn with. Look at that beautiful image. This is the most beautiful pattern paper. So if you like it, you should grab. I think it's available right now, and it is on sale. And pretty cool, because if I cut right in half at 3 inches, we're going to be able to get 3 cards from the same paper. And that's what I've done. This is the card I created, or sorry, this is the other half of the card I created earlier. And I'm looking around because I am going to need to trim this down to 5 1/2. So I need my paper trimmer. I'm going to do a quick cut down to 5 1/2. So it's now 3 by 5 1/2. There. I am going to take the embossed cardstock that I created. This was just run through on the embossing folder. And I'm going to do a little bit of tear. So let's see, I'm going to tear this way, and I want about 3/4, and I want a little, let's see, I do want it kind of wavy there. So I've got that. I want 2 layers, so this one I'm going to make a little bit higher, and I'm not being very precise, so if you are one of those crafters that needs precise measurements, this is not going to be the project for you. All right, now I've got my sand, so to speak, and I'm going to apply a little bit of color to that. I am going to bring in a blending brush and my gray granite ink, and I'm just going to do a little bit of blending on this to bring out the sand and the impressions on the cardstock. So again, the more I play with this bundle, the more I love it. Lots of possibilities with either pattern paper or just the stamps in the bundle. So I've done one, and I do want a little bit of color. I'm going to bring it in closer so you can see how I applied that color. By the way, blending brings out those impressions just a little bit more. And I'm happy that I'm using Pretty Peacock because I won't have to worry that there's ink on my glass mat. It won't show. I do want to have some of the gray granite along that torn edge. What we're going to be doing is burying the live sand dollars in the sand. So we got that. Okay, next I'm going to push that out of the way. And I'm going to do a little bit of assembly here. So this is going to be placed directly onto our card base. Let me bring that up. I'm a little bit low. And my favorite adhesive, it works. I'm just going to apply this directly onto the card base. Pretty Peacock. And by the way, if you would like the PDF with all the measurements and the step-by-step, just make sure that you are on my email list. The PDF will go out this weekend. I love this pattern. It kind of reminds me of that watery effect, right? So this could be under the sea, where the live sea sand dollars live. So sand dollars, once they are pulled from the water and they die and they lose that beautiful purple coloring. So the first layer I'm going to put down is going to be my whiter sand, and because I'm going to bury my sand dollars, I'm going to leave the top open, kind of like a pocket, and I'm leaving about a half an inch from the base. And what's more, I'm going to share with you where I got my inspiration for the layout for this card. So next I'm going to do the other layer, the more narrow layer. And again, I want that pocket. So I'm just going to align that right there over top. I have that pocket, and you can see my pretty sand. Right. Okay, the first sand dollar I'm going to place is my beautiful large sand dollar, and I am going to slip it inside that first layer of sand. I do want to adhere it, so I'm going to put a little bit of adhesive behind, and then I'm going to slide it into that layer of sand and place it around there. Right. Next, I am going to take one of the just die cut and embossed sand dollars. I think I want the medium size, but because these sand dollars are still alive, I want a little bit of color on them. So I'm going to bring in my blending brush, my Petunia Pop, and add a little bit of color to this. Just blend it in around the edges and over top. And you could die cut and Petunia Pop. I kind of like the blended color on a little bit better. So I've got a little bit of color on what was originally just a embossed and die cut sand dollar. This one is going to go just behind that larger die, so right around so, and I am going to apply a little bit of adhesive. And by the way, you could use any size of the sand dollar, it's not going to matter. I'm just going to tuck that right behind so it's peeking out, it's buried in the sand, right? So I got that. Next I'm going to take my brayered sand dollar, right like so. This one is going to get tucked kind of behind that larger one, still in the sand. I'm just going to bring it down a little bit, and I want it secure, so I'm putting a little bit of adhesive behind. So still behind in the sand, just like so. So I've got the 3 styles of sand dollars, just the embossed and die cut, the brayered, and the stamped embossed and die cut. And then I'm going to add my next element, that pretty large sea star, not pretty large, but large and pretty. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of adhesive here on the arms or the limbs, whatever you call the sea stars parts. And this little guy is going to be tucked behind and over, just like so. It's a very easy layout. Again, I'm going to share with you where I got my inspiration. So the sea star is down. I'm almost done, not quite. So my front of my card is done. Let me do the inside, or the insert. So inside, I'm going to use a piece of just basic white, and I am going to do some stamping. I'm going to bring in basic beige, and I want my cutting mat, and I'm going to bring in a little piece of scrap so that I don't soil the cutting mat, and I'm going to bring in the little pebble grouping with a larger group. And I think I did this on a previous card. I'm going to stamp off, let's try it again, stamp off, and we're going to walk the little pebbles up the path. And every time I try to rotate it, because I think that they join a little bit nicer that way. Sometimes it's a little faint, but let's keep going. It's getting really light. Maybe I don't need to stamp off. And just fill in the little area there. So this is nature, it doesn't all have to be even and pretty. So I have my little, bring it closer to you. So I have my little walking path. I am going to stamp a large sea star and a small sea star coming in off the page in Petunia Pop. So there's the mama starfish and the baby starfish. And they are having a good old time in the sand. So let me bring in my basic beige and my sand. This is all part of the same stamp set, and I'm just going to randomly add a little bit of sand on here, right over even. All right, it's coming together. I need a greeting, and one of my favorite greetings from this bundle says, "You absolutely made my day." So how cool would that be to receive that? It's kind of like a thank you note, I think. So I'm going to stamp this again in Petunia Pop, and I'm going to try and stamp straight. I would hate to muff it up at this point. Okay, so just going to press down firmly. And so far I'm doing okay. And actually, have you noticed that so far I have not lost anything? What do you think? Oh my gosh. It's a good day when I don't lose anything. All right, so I'm going to flip that over. This is going to be flatted here. So I need my Tombow liquid glue, get my card, and let me remove this so I don't get that gluey. Open up my card, and trying not to have any smudges or ink on my basic white. Oh, thank you, Corinne. Oh, are you watching this? Oh my lordy, just about. Has that ever happened to you? Oh my God, that's a rhetorical question, because of course it has. It's happened to everybody, right? I mean, you haven't crafted if you haven't glued your image on upside down. All right, there we go. So, almost done. You know me, I love to finish it off with embellishments. Nothing goes more perfect with the Seaside Wishes than the flat adhesive backed pearls, right? So I'm going to bring these in. I'm going to use my take your pick, and I'm going to put in a little cluster of pearls down in here, little trio I should say, there, and one large and a couple small, and bring it up a little bit higher, and then one more because we like threes, and let's see, right down in here, maybe turned a little bit. There we go. There is my Seaside Wishes thank you card, so to speak, created with sand dollars, made with the hybrid embossing folder. So let's review. Here is just the embossed and die cut. We have the brayered and die cut, and I can't share with you my inked sand dollar because I'm using it, but I can share with you this. Remember how I said you don't necessarily have to die cut just in basic white. Here's one in Petunia Pop, and here is one in Moody Mauve. They both, I think, would be very pretty on the card as well. So here are my live sand dollars buried in sand using the Thoughtful Journey DSP, which happens to be on sale this month. Any of the DSP in the annual catalog that's priced $12.50 is on sale. And don't forget to use those bonus day coupons. And I'm going to share with you, I'm going to remind you, oh, I thought I was going to anyway, remind you the card I did last week with the same designer series paper. Oh, thank you, Pam. Pam says she loves the bundle. She's drawn to all the ocean stamps and dies. So here's the one from last week where I added a touch of gold with the coral, the golden coral and the little gold strips and a little bit of gold accents there. So if you want to make more Seaside Wishes cards, if you have this bundle or you're thinking about getting it and you want to get started, join my Greetings card kit of the month. These are the cards we're creating this month. You will get the supplies to make all 5 cards. Some of them are specialty cards. And not only will you get the supplies to make these cards, you'll get the step-by-step tutorials. You will get a share of the country lace paper, which is the paper I've used to create these. You will get the full package of flat backed pearls, the flat adhesive backed pearls, use the correct word, and the linen thread to create your cards with. All for $39, and that includes shipping as well. Registration is closing on August 20th, and fingers crossed I can get these shipped by August 25th. If you're a demonstrator, or perhaps you already have the bundle and the paper and all the supplies and you don't need help with the cardstock, I do have the PDF available for immediate download now, and I will post the link above this video, joined by the 20th. All right, let's see. I hope you enjoyed the 4 ways to create with the hybrid embossing folder. I hope you liked the Seaside Wishes cards, and I hope that you will join me again next week. Thank you so much for all your support. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.